It was another disappointing night at Kenilworth Road on Tuesday as the town surrendered a 2-0 lead to draw 2-2 with Oxford United. To help me review and dissect the game, I've got the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe with me. Jimbo, the highs and lows of football were all portrayed in 90 minutes on Tuesday.
Chaos, wasn't it?
Not chaos enough, though, unfortunately. We will look back at the game and a couple of talking points around it straight after this intro.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got these massive souls.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast, the longest running Luton Town podcast, which is now award nominated as one of the finalists in the Best Football League podcast category at the Football Content Awards. This season, we are sponsored by Solid, providing opportunities, provisions and assistance so that our academy can fulfil their potential. As I said before the intro, we are reflecting on Luton Town 2, Oxford United 2. And alongside me to do that, I have Jimbo as always. 24 hours on or almost. James, what's your sort of overriding reflections now?
Very much similar at the time of the final whistle, where I'm sort of in a no man's land of I don't know whether that's a good point or 2 points drop. It's both, isn't it? It's kind of both. If Liam Walsh hadn't got sent off and they didn't battle for the last 13 minutes and change with 10 men, then I think it's a bad one. But because of that situation, I think he was sent on to change the game, and even though they weren't the instructions, he's changed the game, and it's kind of like I don't want to get splinters or anything, but it is kind of in that middle ground where there was decent parts of the first half, really terrible second half up until the sending off, and then they were the better team. So it's like I said, chaos at the beginning. It just felt like the first half felt chaos because Luton were 2-0 up, and it probably should have been about 5-3 to Oxford. So there was positives and negatives, and then the negatives sort of grew a bit. And I mean, it was a terrible performance in the second half, and I guess that's where the analysis really needs to be, I suppose.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Before we go through all of that, thanks to everyone who replied. I mean, we asked in the preview podcast what your team would be going forward, and got lots of replies. An awful lot of them with 4 at the back. Yeah. We'll come on to
that. We're with you. Yeah, 4 at the back.
That's very much preaching to the converted on that one. But obviously that's a discussion point as well, because that's how we ended the game on Tuesday night. But we started it with a few changes. There were always going to be changes. We kind of knew Tahith Chong was definitely going to be out, just because of the way it went down on, on Friday. Coming into the side, we had Victor Moses from the start again. We already knew we knew that was going to happen. Marvelous Nakamba, we knew that was going to happen. I guess the big talking point with team selection was, and we knew it obviously after we'd recorded the preview podcast, but well before the team sheets come out, it was Elijah Adebayo started up front. I made the case for giving him a rest during that game, but Rob went the other way. He backed his man. Quite right to do so. I wouldn't expect a manager not to back his man. And actually it worked out well because, again, but for the missing goal, Eli was really, really good last night. He ran his arse right into the ground. Really good when there was Jacob Brown up alongside him, and still didn't shirk any of the teamwork when we were down to 10 and he was so isolated. There was no one near him. So that was probably the right thing to do in hindsight. But we'd love a goal in the guy. The guy's just, that's all it's missing now. And all it was missing prior to Oxford is just that goal. Just, can someone at Sheffield United on Saturday, rather than score an own goal for us, can you smack it at his arse and let it go into the corner for us or something? That would just be so helpful.
It would. I mean, he was like a toenail away from connecting to a Doughty cross, wasn't he? And he was so close. And if Cumming hadn't saved Ted and Mengi's header at the end right on the line and managed to get it away, he was there ready to pounce if it had gone wrong. So it's, he has always been getting in the right places. I think you're advocating for him to be removed from that game in the preview podcast because it just was going on. It wasn't doing him any good, and he's missing chances and not getting them on target. It was a different game for him, I suppose, against Oxford. But everything he did off the ball was good. And, some of the stuff he did with the ball was good. So, we were talking about confidence, weren't we? And confidence is low across the whole of the team. That's what we saw in the match against Oxford. But I didn't necessarily sense it from Adebayo in that game, really. It was more a collective confidence about conceding and holding on to leads. And obviously that is a major problem at the moment. And it has been for 2024. It's been a significant issue that to the point where now nobody, including the players, it's transferred to them. It's now transferred everywhere. Nobody is confident of any type of lead. It stems from the Bournemouth game, isn't it? You're 3-0 up and then you lose 4-3. And now this time this happens again. And it's kind of not an isolated thing. You do wonder if Goodrum hadn't scored that stunner just before half time and Luton had managed to get to half time 2-0, even though he probably didn't deserve that scoreline, whether that changes it. But, goals at crucial moments in killer times like that, or after half time, which was happening a lot in the Premier League, were just, setting the ball rolling, and then it's just panic stations, and it feels like that because the second half was just directionless. I didn't know what they were trying to do. I didn't know how they were trying to achieve it, and it was just wave after wave of attack and hold your breath, and that's not a comfortable place for anyone.
No, it's not. If we needed a reminder that we're dealing with human beings here, we had it on Tuesday. They're just shot of confidence. I think, Elijah's work great, and everything about him was great, and he got shots away. There was one in the first half that flashed past the post, but there was one in the second half where he didn't shoot, and maybe that was a collective sign of confidence because it eroded in front of our very eyes throughout the game. The system did change, though. There's an awful lot of talk about system at the moment, quite rightly so. But it did change. We went back to, can I call it the Wembley system? With one behind two in the middle of the park. So for layman's terms, I guess you'd call it a 5-3-2 per se. It's just three centre-halves, your usual two wing-backs. Moses, we'll come on to how far back he was, and Doughty, the wing-backs. Marvellous behind Krause and Clark in the centre of midfield. Obviously at Wembley it was marvellous behind Pelly and Clark. And then of course up front at Wembley it was Morrison alongside Elijah. This time it was Jacob Brown alongside Elijah, or as far up as he could get towards Elijah. And in the first half it worked. It really did work. Yes, Oxford
to a degree.
Yeah, absolutely. Oxford still I wouldn't say they exposed us. They still had chances, but they had to work a lot harder than what Plymouth had to work for their chances. Some of the good football and things got through us. But the main thing was...
Well, there was a similar chance, and this seems to be happening a lot, where the fullback is getting to the byline and cutting back to a player who's completely left unmarked in the centre of the box. And were it not for crappy finishing, then El Mazzuni would have had probably two in that spell.
He would, yeah. That's right. But the ploughing through the middle, there was none of that, thank God. And that was one good thing. This team wants to be a team that presses high, right? That wins the ball back in the opposition third of the pitch. And so having Tom Krause in front of Marvellous and alongside Clark really allowed us to do that. The two strikers were able to hassle the two central defenders, which meant that the two midfielders, Krause and Clark, could get on their two pivots is the phrase these days, isn't it? And that's how the first goal came about. Elijah hassled the defender. Ball broke to one of their pivots. Krause is in on him like a shot, flicks the ball away from him, puts Clark through. And really good finish when you consider how poor Clark was on Friday night to step up, and it wasn't a hard finish, but he still put it in the bottom corner. And you just kind of thought, that's nice.
Mm.
Get in front. Can we build on this sort of thing? But really good for Clicker. Don't play him in that deeper role. That's where we want Clicker on in that final third, either picking a pass or putting a finish in like that.
Yeah, and he looked a lot sharper on the ball as well. He was, even if he picked the ball up with his back to goal, he was turning in the way that we know he can. You know, it was a good goal, and I think there's a case to say that Luton probably could have had a penalty because it looked like Adebayo was shoved in the back as he fell over, but in that move for the goal, that didn't happen obviously, and then Luton still got the goal, so it's a moot point really. But yeah, they sort of swarming all over the defence and they forced the error. And you know, I have seen people go, yeah, but Luton only scored by 2 errors, but they were forced by Luton.
That one was in particular.
Yeah, that's the key thing. They were forced by Luton, and so it's not, I guess they're not cut them open with a passing move, but they've forced those errors, and that's to be applauded really if they're going to be what you say a high pressing team. So it doesn't really matter how the goals come along, and you know, as long as you get them. And it was kind of nice at that stage really that it was the opposition team making howlers, wasn't it? Because you know, not necessarily that particular goal, but we've seen howlers from Luton, and you've gone, oh God, no, not again.
Well, we almost saw one, didn't we, before that goal when Reece Burke and Thomas Kaminski were talking in different languages to each other. They let the ball go. The geezer's clean through on goal, cuts inside. McGuinness has got back, real deflection on it. So I don't know how Kaminski's kept it out. I really don't. But he has done. Full credit to him. I mean, but for Thomas Kaminski, yeah, it wouldn't have been nice on Tuesday night, that's for sure. And Tedamengi, because Tedamengi cleared the second part of that move off the line as well. Really, really well. But we're 1-0 up. We look a lot more secure in midfield. I think that is fair to say. Did we look a lot more secure at the back? No, I don't think we did. And maybe that is a work in progress. At some point, we're going to have to talk about Alfie's defending because he lost Kioso so many times in that first half. It was untrue. The move that you're on about being pulled back to the edge of the box, he lost Kioso. He lost Kioso for their first goal as well.
Well, he lost him from the halfway line. He bombed down and created an overlap that you could see from space. It was that obvious, and he didn't track them whatsoever. And I think it is a problem. And
I only reference it because we didn't get a chance to put any of Rob's pre-match into our preview podcast just because of the relentless nature of these games and getting these podcasts out and things. But there was a quote that he said, didn't he, about tactical flexibility and needing a Mari Bell for it. So basically, I don't want to paraphrase him. I don't want to say anything that he wouldn't say, but the vibe was he wouldn't play Alfie as a left back in a back four. And you could see why 2 or 3 times. And obviously, the longer the game went on, when we did go to a back four, it wasn't Alfie at left back. It was Rue Walters. So I think that's kind of, in a way, that comment encourages me because it does say that they are thinking of it. But how long have we got to wait for Amari Bell to come back? You know, it's one of those things. But importantly, we kept on going. We got a second goal. If we bring it back to the game, this is where the mistake that people are talking about did happen. It wasn't just Burke and Kaminski that were on different wavelengths. Their defender and their goalkeeper was on a different wavelength as well. I have absolutely no idea where the goalkeeper was going, but it was nowhere near the line of the ball, that's for sure. Long ball from Reece Burke, gets through the gap between the defender and the goalkeeper. Credit to Jacob Brown, because it is a lost cause really that he's chasing down. That ball should have been cleared by one of them two. He's chased it down. He hasn't panicked. He's shown a little bit of composure. He's looked up. He's assessed his options. I thought initially he was trying to see where Elijah was to set it up on a plate for him. But Elijah was on the other side. Luckily, Krause was right alongside him. Just rolled it into him. Lovely finish from Krause into the far corner as he was looking at it. Really deserved goal from him because he was brilliant for 45 minutes, 50 minutes. And at 2-0 then, you're kind of like, now go and kick on and show us the class that you've got. And although it didn't happen, it was just good that we could keep on going forward. But that's when it turned, really, wasn't it? When it went 2-0.
Yeah, I think so. It just seemed awfully quiet in the ground, and you predicted a muted atmosphere, and
It
I
was
think
always
that was
it was always going to be largely muted because half of the crowd are getting drenched. It was foul. And actually, we should say well done to Dickie and the groundsman, because that pitch was borderline playable at 7 o'clock, because the rain that came down from 2:30 to 7 was relentless. And then there was another massive burst of it during the first half, around about the time that Kraus scored. So that didn't help create an atmosphere. But the atmosphere was a lot more positive than I thought it may have been. Of course, being 2-0 up helped, but it never turned when we went 2-2 or anything. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, you kind of hope in 2 weeks' time it's going to be a lot better than that.
Oh, well, let's just think so. That all that stuff goes out the way for a derby, even though it's increasingly looking like a nervous one, which you don't want it to be. But heroes are made in those sorts of days. We'll come to that when the time comes. But yeah, I mean, at 2-0, and Clicker should have had 2 others as well. He's shanked them horrendously by.
Yeah, one of those was 0-0, wasn't it? And if that had found the bottom corner, that would have been lovely, because that kind of reminded me of one of the shots that he had in one of the games earlier in the season, where he did sorry, not that way, the first goal against Bournemouth, where Berry put him through and he coolly slid it into the corner, whereas this time, when he saw the whites of the goals, he just pulled it past the post. But we could have had a lot more than the 2 that we did in that first half. So there was encouraging parts of that. The defence, it's not great at the moment, is it? And then their first goal, I mean, you've highlighted the run that Kyoso's made again. They get lucky, don't they? The ball bounces off Ted and Mengi right into the path of, I think it's Rodriguez, who I have to say looks a really tidy player in the centre of the park for them. They've got a few, to be fair to them. And if Brannigan is their best midfielder, and he was missing, maybe their midfield is quite tasty. He just laid it off to Goodrum. When it got to him, I just thought he was putting a hopeful cross in to the box, but it's very, very apparent that he's aimed for the top corner, bent it outside the post and put it in the top corner. Lovely. I mean, Kaminsky had a worldy night, but even he couldn't get anywhere near that.
Well, no, he's hit it first time as well, but he was looking for that, and it's disappointing, because I'm sure they would have done their homework on that. He scored one earlier in the season in a previous game. I forget the opponent, forgive me, but I saw it, a similar sort of goal. So that's obviously his signature shot, if you like, from what I've seen of the season at least. And it's like, you need to get out there and close down quicker. But that's the issue, isn't it? I think that the defence don't know in that 3. They don't know how to do that, and this is why we're advocating and have done for 4 at the back. And we've seen it twice this season, and it's worked a treat. And both times it's when Luton have been down to 10 men. And it just, I understand everybody's frustration, because I am. It's like, why can't you see that? That is what needs to happen. At least for now, get some stability with that. They seem to know what they're doing. There was so few chances, and not even chances. They weren't even running at Luton's defence at that point. And you're like, well, that's the security we want all the time. And the 3 isn't working. It hasn't worked for a long time, and that's where I think one of the reasons where people are really, really frustrated. And I, can fully understand that, really. And I think it needs a brave decision to see that that's worked twice, really sturdily, and then obviously who do you bring out? Who do you not have in that back line?
Well, you don't necessarily need to bring anyone out, do you? Because he played Reece Burke at right back, and it worked, really. I mean, they didn't attack down the left-hand side very much. The only time they got in down the left-hand side was when Moses was clearly fouled in injury time. And we'll come on to that in a moment, because I really did enjoy that passage of play, actually, from our side of things. The only other highlight in the first half, there I was minding my own business while the number 5 thought he was injured. All of a sudden, scooting across the laps of us in the front row behind the disabled part in the Kenilworth end, it's a fox. Now, it moved so quickly, otherwise I'd have grabbed it and stuck it in the box, because we're absolutely desperate for a fox in the box. But he scarpered, but I was like, what was that? But he shot past us. He disappeared in I don't know. He seemed to go under the stand. I hope the poor lad's all right, but I weren't expecting that of a Tuesday night.
There's a joke in there somewhere, isn't there? May as a fox in your lap. Congratulations.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It was. It's not what I expected. When I said I wanted a fox in the box, I didn't want that.
You know, the thing I'm mentioning about defence, and what I kind of want to get around to, is that I don't really want to see Reece Burke at right back.
No, I don't either.
And I want to see him at centre back. And I think the partner he needs at the moment, for me, is Mengi. And that means he's going to have to be brave and take McGuinness out at the minute, because he hasn't been impressing to the amount of money that he costs. I know that's not his fault. There's nothing he can control about that. That's the price that Cardiff put on his head, and he's gone for that money. And even though they've not said it, we believe that's the Luton's record signing. But he's not offering enough for me to say. He's not offering enough on his own performance, and he's not offering enough in a 3 where the 3 looks anywhere useful, because it doesn't. And so I'm thinking that for me is where the change would have to be.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I don't want to see Reece Burke at right back either. He actually plays it very well. He played it very well when we played him there in the Championship, and on the odd occasion, like at Notts Forest away in the Premier League. He can play it very well. I'm just wondering if it's the answer whilst we're waiting for Amari Bell to come back.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose there's that argument, and I think that's probably a strong argument.
Because I think I think we both agree that Rue Walters is the guy that we want at right back.
Yeah.
But if we utilise Rue Walters at left back, and I'll come on to him in a minute, because he was probably the outfield, after Crass went off, he was the outfield positive on the night. If we utilise him at left back, then in a stopgap needs must kind of let's get someone at right back so that we can play this formation, and Reece Burke is the only option that we have there. Well, I'd much rather that than continue persisting with this back 5, and I'd much rather that than have Victor Moses messing about on the edge of our box defending, rather than being on the edge of their box attacking.
I totally agree. There's a Victor Moses argument. I mean, that was his first start, wasn't it? So he's new into the side. I'm starting to come around to the idea that I think that it's playing the 3 with the 2 wing backs, who technically make it a 5 when they're defending, to try and suit Doughty. And that's all well and good going forward. And like we said in the previous podcast, he's top of the tree for all chances created and stuff like that. But it's not working in the other sense. And that final 13 minutes showed what is possible. And you've just got to be able to see it and not keep persisting with this situation, which isn't working and just is causing a bit of chaos and nerves and ultimately disappointment, because you go 2-0 up and you should win any match. But when you've had the knock-on effect of this formation for this season, and really the hangover from last season of not being able to hang on to leads and your defence being so easy to get at, it kind of needs to change. At the same time, you recall in the previous podcast, we said, well, maybe he hasn't got the time maybe to change it now. Maybe that waits till the international break. And nobody wants to hear that, because nothing can wait, can it?
No, it can't. Thankfully, it's only one game. Hell, if we line up with a back 4 on Derby Day, I will be so happy. I don't even care who the 4 are, to be quite honest with you. I just want 4. Straight after half-time, the game changed, didn't it? Tom Krause had to go off within about 3 or 4 minutes of the second half starting. I'll say it, I thought the tackle on him from Kiyoso was cowardice. He knows he's only going to get a yellow card for doing it, right? Don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing it to the Liam Walsh one. We'll come on to the Liam Walsh one in a minute. But he knows he's going through the man to get the ball. He knows that the player can't see him coming because he's got his back to him. And there's force in that tackle. That wasn't I'll nick the ball off you and I'll run up the wing. That was, I'm leaving one on you. I'm taking everything. And then he caught him. He proper caught him. I don't know if it needed 10 somersaults and everything else, but he definitely proper caught him. You could hear the thud of the tackle. I didn't like that particularly. And once Kraus went off, I mean, really and truly, the press went.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I thought Liam Walsh should have come on there and then, although he didn't exactly make that age well when he did come on, I'll grant you. But for 10 minutes, I mean, we couldn't keep the ball. I'll leave other people to pick out who and why, but we couldn't, and they scored shortly after. Another very similar goal to the first one, down the right-hand side. This time it's Edwards, isn't it, not Dale? They've swapped their wingers by this point. They've changed formation as well. They've kind of gone to a wider attacking formation rather than more narrower one that they were utilising in the first half. Cross comes over. Our 3 centre-halves are all marking their zones, but unfortunately their player isn't in any of their zones, and it's Rodriguez who just ghosts in, really. And he has a tap in. I mean, again, Kaminski had a brilliant night, but there was no saving that.
No, and it's so disappointing that they don't seem to be picking up their markers anywhere. In the box is vital, isn't it? But so much space for the likes of Goodrum to run in down the sides, and Mizuni was having a bit of a field day in the first. Rodriguez, grew into the game, obviously got that goal. It was just, and they were all seeming to interchange as well, which again, from a Luton perspective, you're looking at it and going, oh, it seems so rigid from what we're doing, and everything seems so much more of a struggle. And what they're doing and interchanging, similar to what Plymouth were doing, little passes that all worked, all went to the right people, all right in front of people, so they could keep their move going. Luton couldn't really get the ball. There was a period where Luton didn't have the ball for about 3 or 4 minutes. It felt like a very, very long time.
Like 3 or 4 days, I don't know, about 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah, and it just felt like every challenge they won, every loose ball went to them, but that wasn't fluke. They were the way that they were pressing and working off the ball to get that is what brought it. But then there was nothing around Luton's centre, to particularly after Kraus went as well, that was stopping them. And we've seen that far too many times. It's just it just felt like Luton were trying to play through treacle, and they were zipping it off the nice slick surface like you hope Luton would, and it wasn't happening.
No, it wasn't. You saw a confident side against an unconfident side at this point. That's for sure. Yeah, just on the second goal, I mean, Alfie shouting at someone to go with the decoy runner, who I think might have been Kiyoso. But he didn't stop Edwards, and he was never passing it. And actually, all Alfie did, he kind of sold himself and allowed the lane for the cross to come in, and there it was. It sounds like I'm digging Alfie out. I'm not. I love Alfie to bits and everything, but if we're being as easy as that to defend against, we've got to defend better than that. And but it's just unfortunate that literally the 3 or 4 key moments of their attacking in the game kind of came from him switching off or losing a runner, really. And
but what they were doing felt like before Luton lost Walsh and they had a full complement, it still felt like they had more players, because what they were doing was stifling Luton so much. But Luton were also partly to blame for that. There was a really frustrating period in that second half where only Adebayo was in just in their half, and everything was in Luton's half, and there was no one to pass to. It was at a point where it was so slow and concerning. Like, it just felt like the ideas had run out at that point.
yeah, I mean, we've made a second sub, haven't we? Jacob Brown's gone off and Rue Waters has come on. Rue Waters has come on at left back. And that stemmed the flow of Edwards, who was becoming a growing influence on the game, but it completely nullified us as an attacking point of view, because, like you say, Elijah was so isolated. And what it also allowed, because we're still playing 3 deep centre backs, they're all pretty much on the edge of our box. Their left back could go into the centre of midfield and form a sort of extra pivot in midfield, which then released Rodriguez or one of the other midfielders that were already in there to then supplement Harris in attack. And all of a sudden, they're kind of leaving themselves sort of 3-3-4 against us. And they know full well that Victor Moses isn't coming down the right-hand side because he's so deep in our formation that he's only at right wing back. We can't get him out. We couldn't get him out. Couldn't get him up the pitch at all in the second half until the sending off completely forced the whole thing. So really and truly, that's where their extra man, that's where it looked like. But the extra man was there, but he was there from left back because at no stage in that early part of that second half could we get anything going down the right-hand side whatsoever. I mean, for half an hour, you could have forgotten, and there's no slight on him. It's just the way that the game patterned out down that right-hand side. You could have just forgotten that Victor Moses was on the pitch. It was just...
Which is annoying because when he did get into the game, he was really positive, really direct. The things that we talked about in the performances he's had so far, exactly what we want to see. But I don't want to see him, and I didn't want to see Chio before him playing a right wing back position because that's not... In this division, Victor Moses will terrify the hell out of defenders if he's allowed to just run at them, and he's not going to be able to do it from there. And he's arguably... That's not something he's used to. He'll do it, obviously, but yeah, I don't want to see that. And,
well, not only that as well, he's 33 years old. His petrol tank's going to empty if he's going up and down that line all the time. I don't want his petrol tank to empty defending. I want him attacking. We want another defender. Look, we've covered it. We've covered it until we're blue in the face. You know, we've gone through. We want him in front of Walters, and we want Doughty in front of. If it's Bell, then it's Bell. That's how we kind of want it. Liam Walsh did come on the pitch. If you blinked at the wrong time, you'll have missed him coming onto the pitch. There's no defending that tackle, right? That tackle's a stupid tackle. It's a reckless tackle. It was a red card as soon as it happened. I don't know why it took the referee longer to bring the red card out than it did for Walsh to come on and make that tackle, but it did. The one thing I will say, though, I'm not going to sit here and be hypocritical because in the Plymouth Review podcast, I asked for some aggression in the centre of the park. Now, that's misplaced aggression. But do you know what? At least someone went on the pitch, having sat on the sidelines for the last game and 2/3, and put a tackle in. Yes, it was a bad tackle. Yes, it was a wrong tackle, and it served us no purpose whatsoever, and we're going to miss him for 3 games at a time where we've got midfield injuries and we really could have done with him. But he put a tackle in. No one else seemingly has put a tackle in the centre of the park for going on months, it feels like.
Well, I'm glad you seem to find a silver lining in that. I mean, it was, it was an awful decision.
Yeah, I'm not defending it.
No.
I'm really not defending it. But I can't sit here and ask for people to put tackles in the middle of the park and then absolutely ruin them when they do it.
No.
But at the same time, I don't want people to be going in 2-footed halfway up someone's leg like that. It was a stupid tackle. It was a horrible tackle, and it's quite rightly sent off.
Listen, at the time, you're thinking, well, that's it. That's the game gone. They're all over him anyway. And maybe, like you said, he probably should have come on sooner. That's an argument that can be made. Why are these decisions taking so long? Get the changes made and let's start to change the game.
Well, he should have come on for Crass, shouldn't he?
Yeah, he should have. But, what he has done is he has changed the game. Like I said, it's such a strange situation that, from that sort of despair to actually playing better, it's almost baffling. Although there's reasons and the shape change and the intent is there. Luton had the best chance, looked like the only team that were going to get it then. Get a win or score the goal. It was that was a lot more heartening. But you just don't want to go through this pain to get there.
No, you don't. And that's right. You absolutely don't. And no one's happy with a point having led 2-0. Let's get that right. No one's happy with that. But I think the players do deserve a little bit of credit for getting through to 2-2. Because you're right, when Liam Walsh got sent off, actually not when Liam Walsh got sent off, when the second goal went in, everyone's waiting for the third one to go in because we've seen Bournemouth. We've been here before, even when we do it the other way and we come from 2-0 down and get back to 2-2, someone will switch off at the back post and we'll lose 3-2. We've seen these movies too many times. But And really, how they didn't score with that triple save that Kaminsky made, I've no idea. Absolutely out of this world. I mean, Harris has tried to go around him, hasn't he? And he's stopped it, and then 2 more have pinged in on him, and somehow he stopped that. I mean, it was like he was like the grabbers on the pinball machine, wasn't he? And the ball was coming at him from all angles. It was crazy, but they could have gone under when that red card happened. They could have felt sorry for themselves. Geezer's just come off the bench to help them out, to try and get them through to full time. And, he hasn't even lasted 36 seconds, I think it was, 7 seconds where the ball was in play. So they could have gone under. They could have gone, oh, Jesus Christ, F our luck. But they didn't. And you're right. This is the second time this season that we've been down to 10 men. And it's the second time this season we have looked absolutely rock solid as a defence. The catalyst on both occasions is he's gone to a back 4 with 4 in front of them,
and with some threat.
Yeah,
There was no threat before that.
No.
From the 50-minute mark onwards.
I mean, it should say that the threat was helped by the fact that Oxford saw the chance to pounce and push more men forward, which kind of helped us on the counter attack a little bit. Whereas Portsmouth didn't do that. Down at their place, they kept up the same formation and thought, well, it's going to come at some point, and it never did. But so we've gone to a back 4. Rue Waters has already come on at left back. Mengi, McGuinness, and as I mentioned earlier, Reece Burke's gone to right back. Victor Moses has gone in front of Reece Burke. Alfie Doughty's gone in front of Rue Waters. Central midfield at that time was Pelly. Well, it was meant to be Walsh, wasn't it? But once he got sent off, Corley Woodrow came back. He was obviously shepherding Elijah at the time. He's come back, gone and played central midfield. That's why Joe Taylor didn't come on. And Elijah's on his own up front. At no real stage in that part, really, did we get opened up.
No.
At no stage in that part did any of the back 4 give me the impression that they didn't know their position. And at no part in that time did I really think we're going to get broken down here. Now, if they were going to score, it would have been a 20-yard, 25-yard shot, which no one could do anything about because they've got an extra man. There's always going to be a man free.
Yeah, and there was that late free kick where you're thinking, oh, God, it's gone so well since the sending off.
Yeah, this is going to end up in the top corner. But do you know the best part about that free kick? Someone actually grabbed him as he was about to go in on goal, and Pelly grabbed hold of him and he said, you are not going in on our goal. I'm going to wipe you out. I'm going to get the yellow card. I can't remember the amount of times I've asked for someone to do that this season. They all do it against us going the other way. He's grabbed hold of it. Listen, that's a foul on Victor Moses at the other end, right? It's a foul. The referee's put his whistle in his mouth for the second time in this half. He's put his whistle in his mouth, thought about it, seen that the opposition's on the attack, thought, oh Christ, panicked, took the whistle out of his mouth, tripped Reece Burke up along the way as well. So that Dembele, isn't it, who's got pace to burn, if you remember him from his Peterborough days. Fair play to Pelly for getting across to him. Fair play to him for not shepherding him and hoping that you can get a tackle in. Just, you're not going through, mate. We're still far enough out. I'm only going to get a card. Down you come. And if you scored a free kick, well, how's our luck? Finally, the penny has dropped.
I mean, yeah, it has.
It's cynical. Opposition fans will hate me saying it. Oxford fans will hate me saying it. But hellfire, we don't do it. And look what happens. When we do it, the free kick whizzes over the crossbar. We live to fight another day. Had he not have done it, he goes through because Burke's out of position because of the referee. He's got a shot on goal at Kaminsky.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this aspect of it because quite rightly there's some other more important aspects that people are going to talk over in the immediate aftermath. And obviously we're recording this 24 hours later. But I thought the snidey side of it in that period was spot on, like you called for. And do you know what? Corley Woodrow gets a lot of pelters, but he was running around in that central midfield, tugging on shirts, nipping at ankles, and fair play to him. And Pelly likewise just wants somebody to come in and, wipe somebody out and take a yellow if you have to. I mean, Berkey got the yellow in the end, didn't he? Because he was so furious. With
they both got a yellow, didn't they? Pelly got a yellow as well. Didn't even have to wipe him out. All he did was grab hold of him. It's not like he did a Walsh and ploughed into him 2-footed or anything like that. He just pulled him back, made sure he weren't going no further. That's all you've got to do. The Sheffield Wednesday geezer did it to Zach Nelson, didn't he, for his first yellow card before he got, They all do it to us. For the life of me, I don't understand why we don't do it to them. So, yeah, chapeau, Pelly. I mean, there's no getting away from the fact that the first 10 minutes wasn't your finest 10 minutes of football in a Luton shirt. But that incident there, we don't know whether he'd have gone through and scored, but he'd have definitely gone through and had a shot. That incident there might have rescued us a point. And when we get to May the whatever it is, you just don't know how valuable that point might be.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult to see the bright side of what happened on Tuesday night because, well, it wasn't a bright night. It pissed it down for starters. It was pretty gloomy.
I mean, you quoted the verb quite often in your program notes, and it turned to Travis. Why does it always rain on me? Didn't it? It's
very good 90s reference. I like it. Let's the overall arching situation with this is it was not good, but if you are going to turn this around, it's not going to just suddenly click into Brazil 1970, is it? You're going to have to grind something out.
The car doesn't go from 0 to 100 without all the speeds along the way, does it? It's got to start somewhere. If you've got the car in reverse, at some point, you've got to get it into neutral before you can get it into forward. Let's hope Tuesday night was it going into neutral.
Yeah, this is the thing. Hopefully that has given them some confidence that they can defend. It kind of makes me feel it'd be all for nothing if they don't learn the lesson of this system. It's such a big issue now. You can't ignore it. It's not working. And even if, like you say, he did say in the pre-match that Bell was quite pivotal to being able to change it up a bit. But in the meantime, find another solution because he's fairly reliable these days, Amari Bell. That granted, but he's not going to be there. We know he's going to be out for weeks, and that's maybe a conservative weeks because we know how much hamstring injuries have screwed over Luton's defence in the last year. So, find the other option to fit a system that seems simpler, that they're more au fait with and more confident with, and that's it. The confidence is shot. We saw that from the first Oxford goal up until the sending off, and even perhaps before that, because they had a lot of chances. They were good, Oxford. You have to give them credit. The confidence is so rock bottom. It's sort that out first, and suddenly that means just being hard to beat. And if it's, if you have to take a few like hard fought 0-0s, maybe nick a 1-0 somewhere. That's the starting point. We began this season talking about how they want to play as a view to next season or whenever Luton are able to get promoted. Take that off the table now. You need to start from the basics.
Yeah, I agree. Back four, the three in midfield in the same formation that we started the three in midfield with at the start of the game on Tuesday night. Moses one side of a striker, Alfie down to the other side of a striker, and let's have a right good go at it.
4-3-3. You said it last season. Most of the Premier League teams are playing that.
They all play it.
Yeah, and
how did Spain win the Euros?
Yeah, so it doesn't. When you look at it like that, doesn't it really even make sense for the argument of if Luton get promoted, they've got to try and hit the ground running, playing a Premier League style of football. Again, let's not talk about that now. But if they do, let's say, get up there, then if they're all playing 4-3-3, then play that. And Victor Moses will thrive in that. I think Doughty will thrive in that as well. I think he'll thrive because he won't have to be thinking about tracking back. It's clearly not his forte. There's not enough in this system of players on the flanks blocking crosses. This barely exists, and I think that would change.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I mean, I always think with Alfie, with his defending, not to expect too much, which is stupid when he's a wing back. He made his debut for us as in centre of midfield at Norwich, didn't he? In the promotion season. So yeah, maybe we should be looking at him a lot further forward than what we currently are doing. I mean, there were a lot of injuries around that time, which is how he ended up back at left back, wasn't there? But
look at his stats. Sorry to sound like a bloody broken record.
Most chances created in the Championship by a distance.
He's number one for all the important metrics for the attacking fare that he's there for. So why not exploit that? I mean, it already feels like this system is there to try and get the best out of him anyway, but it's not. So go the extra mile and let him loose.
You're preaching to the converted here, my friend. I would, yep. I mean, obviously, you know, doing that, you're not going to be able to find room for the Chongs of this world, but
yeah, these are the difficult decisions.
But Chong doesn't make us hard to beat, does he? That's the thing.
You can't have it all. You've got this squad, and sometimes they're going to have to come in and come out, and it can't be that everybody has a game all the time. Chong was wonderful at the end of the Premier League season, but Luton still got relegated, and you know, if he has to sit back and be an impact player, which he did, building up to that end of the Premier League season, then so be it. We've got enough players. We've got so many players now that effectively could all be in the first 11 that you're going to have to get used to this idea, or maybe even Edwards is going to have to get used to it, that play what's going to work for that team that you're playing. Play the players that are on form, and stop trying to crowbar them into this system, and just play something that will play to their strengths, which I don't think that's happening at the moment. And certainly Chong in the previous match barely touched the ball, and he's not having any joy at the moment. So, you know, in the same way that last podcast you're advocating, maybe Elijah comes out because it's not going well for him. I think maybe that changes now because he had a decent game. Maybe it's other players, and maybe Chong's one of them. And like I said earlier, I think maybe McGuinness is another.
Yeah. It's fair enough. McGuinness coming out would be a big change, I think, not least because he wins an awful lot of aerial duels at the back, but also he's the focal point for set pieces at the other end. So, but you know, you're right. We need to be hard to beat. We need to put 4 defenders on the pitch in positions where they can defend and are comfortable defending. That stops the opposition from scoring, and we need to do it now because the kind of fixtures just run out. That's the overriding problem with all of this. We started the season by saying get past Burnley and you've got 7 comfortable fixtures to build your way into the season. Well, we haven't. We've built our way out of the season. That's the problem. Now everyone's looking at these next 5 games, and they're looking at it and they're like, where's the next win coming from? Spoiler alert, I've supported this football club for long enough. We are so much better as an underdog than we are, or an outsider as we are a favourite. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if we start playing football in these 5 games and win a couple of them. It's how Luton always seem to do it. Terrible when we're expected to win. God's gift when we're not expected to win. But yeah, you're right. But I can understand why people are looking at the next 5 games. I mean, the next 5 games, Sheffield United away. I mean, they've been our rabbits recently, but you're looking at the way the 2 teams are playing and you're like, well, that's going to change. Everyone's shitting a brick over Derby Day, and I can understand why. And then the 3 after that aren't exactly gimmies, are they? Sunderland went top of the league on Tuesday night. Coventry are obviously, they're struggling as well. 1 on Tuesday night, I grant you. Playoff rivals, there's going to be an extra bit of oomph on that game. And then the leaders before Tuesday night are in town, West Brom. The only good thing you can say about the West Brom games is a Friday night. Hopefully the atmosphere will be good, etc., etc., etc. But that will only depend on the results of the 4 games previously. So yeah, these defenders need to be, and ultimately Rob's job, and the reason why they've given him a 4-year deal, is to make tough decisions. So if he has to make one now, he has to make one now, doesn't he? If it's Mengi who has to come out, then it's Mengi who has to come out. If it's McGuinness who has to come out, it's McGuinness who has to come out. But ultimately, we cannot go on relying on our goalkeeper to keep a score down to 2.
No, but I also don't think the corner argument is enough to say, well, McGuinness has to play, because we don't score from a corner. He can be the focal point all you like, but if it's not working, it's not working.
Yeah, no, fair shout. One thing we are going to have to do, though, is support Rob Edwards, because if you've got a programme on Tuesday night, whether you're a person who wants him to stay, like myself, or a person who thinks his time is up, again, that's your opinion, you're respected for it, and it's not a problem. He's not going anywhere. And the reason why I say that is because Wilco wrote in his programme notes, and allow me to look down and read these. I'm not going to read it all, but there's a certain few sentences that clarifies the situation with regards to that. So hopefully the talk of it dies down, even though you may or may not change your mind. So I think we all know that we are better than we are showing so far this season, and I believe it will come. However, we all need to stick together to support Rob, the coaches, and the squad to pick up the form and generate the excitement that we are used to and expect. I'll miss a paragraph out. We have quality people operating throughout the club who, I'm sure, expect us to remain confident in their abilities to turn things around. We would not be where we are today by making knee-jerk decisions. That has been the unsuccessful philosophy of others who shall remain nameless. So that basically, some might see that as a vote of confidence in Rob Edwards. I don't see it as that at all, because I don't think Wilco or any of the 2020 guys actually, who are fans themselves, let's not forget, do things like that. They are straight, they are honest, and that's basically telling it how it is.
People are entitled to their opinions. If they don't want him here, then they are. I still wouldn't say boo. That's not my style. But clearly there were some boos on Tuesday night, but there weren't. It wasn't widespread boos. It was little pockets of boos. So the feelings there, and some are not enjoying it. Well, who is enjoying it? It's not enjoyable at the moment. That's the thing, isn't it? And that's one thing that has been a feature of Luton for so long. It's been largely enjoyable. It's not at the moment. It's in a very difficult moment. So yeah, we'll see on that. But he's not. I didn't think at any point that we were near the stage where that conversation would ever reach the powers that be. Yeah, I just think that social media is not real life, is one thing. And there seems to be people that want him gone now or yesterday, and the people that are prepared to give him a chance. I think that says it all, really, doesn't it? What Wilco's put in there, and whether you like that or not, that is the reality. So it doesn't really matter what I say or what anyone thinks. We're all entitled to our opinions, but that's probably where they are. I mean, I do see on social media a lot of people commenting on, we're human beings. We're trying to make logical sense out of things, just in general in life. Even though it probably doesn't seem like it, there's a lot of batshit stuff going out in the world. But generally, we try to make logical sense out of situations. And so when we don't understand the full context of everything, we kind of fill the gaps. And for me, the fill in the gaps at the moment seems like, well, his there's people will say his body language doesn't look right, or things like, well, things aren't going right. Does our body language look right? But I'm also not a body language expert. There's a lot to it, and they talk about his demeanour and stuff like that. Well, he's lost a full match and he's gutted and stuff. But I also think there's other factors in to be considered, and I think the year that the football club has had, but also that man and what he's had to deal with, you can't underestimate the knock-on effects that have happened from Tom, and then relegation. You work all your career to get to the top, and then it doesn't work out and you slip out of the top division. All these things can happen and pile up, and he's a human. He's, who is to say what, additional effects these things do and take toll on you. So I don't really understand the people going into that sort of level of detail. It's a discussion point, I guess, but we're just speculating, aren't we?
Yeah, listen, on his demeanour, if he ever comes out smiling after we've lost a game of football in one of those club interviews, that's the time to worry. This guy cares. That's the one thing that nobody can possibly not level at him. Anyone who saw him walk around that pitch at Bournemouth on December the 16th, don't tell me that this guy doesn't care. He didn't have to do that. Could quite easily have stayed in the dressing room and said, look, lads, I can't do it. But he didn't. He went round, he thanked all the fans around there, and the heartfelt stuff that's gone with it. You're right, you can't put into words what that day has done to anyone. I watched the Bournemouth-Southampton game the other night. I hate even on television, I hate watching games at Bournemouth now, because it just brings back bad memories. I was there. I've spoken about it on this podcast. I didn't like going to the second game. You just can't help but think about it. And thankfully, it's all ended out well. But you just can't forget what happened that afternoon. And I'm on the periphery of it. I'm nowhere near the centre of it like he would have been. So the other thing, what they're doing in training must work, right? Because if it's not working in training, this is not a stupid man. This is an intelligent man who knows football very well. If they can't do what he's asking them to do in training, he will definitely find something else to do. But they're not therefore transferring what they do on the training pitch, which is completely different to the field of play. But they're obviously not doing it, and that would cause a frustration to me as well. I'd be like, why the can't you do it when you do it so well Monday to Friday? Because if they didn't do it well Monday to Friday, he would change. He'd have to change because he'd have lost the players. And I don't think he's definitely not lost the players. Before anyone starts that comment, he hasn't, because they'd have gone under on Tuesday night if he had. So that would lead to a frustration. We're so good Monday to Friday. You and I have seen the odd training session when we've been to press conferences or seen training taking place around us. And training looks good. But we just can't seem to get it on the football pitch at the minute. And that must be so frustrating. Then he takes it on himself to carry the can for everything, which he shouldn't do. Yes, there's certainly elements that he should carry the can for, but there are certain elements that he can't. I mean, one player not being able to pass to another one from 10-yard distance. I'm sorry, but that's not on the manager. That is on the player themselves. Players missing sitters, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, I can understand it. Look, do I want Rob to leave this football club? No. No way do I want Rob to leave this football club at the minute. He's the guy who brought Premier League football to us, and he is the guy who brought Premier League football to us. Please, can we end with this nonsense that Nathan Jones took us to the Premier League? He did not take us to the Premier League.
He didn't even take us to the Championship.
He didn't take us to the Championship. Mick and Rob are humble men, and they're good men, and they don't really crave the limelight. And that's why they come up with this, I didn't really change too much. What we had in place was good to go. They both changed something. And Rob in particular, he brought Marvellous in. He put two more midfielders in front of Marvellous, and we were so hard to beat. And I mentioned it so many times. Every time we went behind under Nathan in the last 18 months, that was it. Could have walked out, gone and had a few more beers at the pub, because we weren't turning no games around. Within 2 games of Rob, we were starting to turn defeats into victories. So Rob's the man who took us to the Premier League. He's the man I want to sort it out. They've given him a 4-year contract. They're not going to sack him after 8 games, nor should they. He's come out, he's been bold, he's been honest with us and said, our aim this season is to get promoted. Maybe that hasn't helped. Maybe that's fired a load more expectation on everyone at a time where we didn't need it. But he was honest enough to say that. We don't get promoted after 8 games in much the same way that we couldn't have got relegated from the Premier League at Christmas when everyone was coming out with that. Why are they not coming out with that this season, by the way? Hello, Southampton. It's a 46-game thing. Yes, we need to be better. We do need to be better. Yes, we need to turn things around quickly. But I referenced in the last podcast about my fear that last night would have turned into the Stevenage game in the conference. We did panic after the Stevenage game in the conference. Mick did get sacked. The next 4 years were a shit show.
Mm.
And okay, it might be different this time around because they've got a bit more experience. We're a bigger club. We've got more clout about us that we can appoint better people. But ultimately, there's no guarantee. I can't see a name out there right now, even if I did want Rob Edwards to go, that I'm thinking, cool, you'd be a great replacement right now. So I firmly believe Rob's the man to turn it around. Am I frustrated that he persists with this formation? Absolutely. Would I much rather move to a back 4? You all know that. Anyone who's watched every single podcast this season, I've pretty much referenced it in every single one. But is he suddenly the man not to turn this around? No, I don't think so. He turned the Premier League season around. It was like one of those egg timers where he just turned it completely upside down and it changed, didn't it? He needs to do that now.
Yeah.
But we should have faith and belief that he can do that. And hopefully it will turn. I don't know where it needs to be. before I change my mind. But I'm certainly not changing it on the evidence of 8 games, of which we've only lost half of them, and one of them we should have won. I think the long term, this guy is right for us. I might change my mind if Amari Bell does come back and things still are on this course. But right now, I'd like to see everyone behind Rob, everyone behind the players, and I'll hold my hands up. I kind of said about dropping Elijah and things like that, but that's not to say that I was against Elijah when he was on the pitch on Tuesday night or anything like that. But the players to take a little bit more responsibility about it as well, being that little together, that kind of chests out, you're not getting through us, like we had in that last 15 minutes, and just go from there. And who knows, Saturday it might all turn around. It's the first time this season we're going to be underdogs. We weren't even underdogs against Burnley on the opening day of the season. We're underdogs on Saturday at a place where we've got good recent memories, and let's hope it turns. But yeah, for me, I'm kind of with Wilco, really, and I wouldn't want them to make knee-jerk reactions, because you start making one knee-jerk reaction and all of a sudden you get onto a slippery slope where you keep making knee-jerk reactions, and that's when you end up like a Leeds United or many of the others that sack their manager and it doesn't work out. And then you end up where Birmingham City are right now. Remember them? 5th or 6th in the league when they sacked Eustace? That's how quickly it can all go the other way. So I'm kind of glad that they're keeping faith with him. I personally believe he's the man to turn this around. But, obviously we need to start getting results on the board to echo that and to show it, really.
You do, and that's ultimately what it comes down to. And you're probably going to win no new fans yourself by saying that, because they're some people have made their decision, and I don't think there's anything we can say or anyone can say to change their mind on that. The only thing that can change is ultimately results, but the way to achieve the results, the tweaks to the side, tweaks to the lineup. I guess there's an argument to say how long is a work in progress, but
it's longer than 8 games.
Yeah, I think it probably is, but such is the reactionary nature of sport.
Well, I mean, look at one of our future opponents, Stoke. They've already binned a manager off. Where's their improvement? They've lost 3-1 at home to Hull, and they've lost at Middlesbrough in the 2 games since then. It's not. Sacking a manager isn't necessarily always the answer, and Schumacher was perfectly fine at Plymouth, wasn't he? He was effectively the guy that got them right up to the top of, he got them out of League One as champions, didn't he? And all of a sudden, he's not good enough for Stoke. And you look at Stoke, I mean, how many managers have they gone through? Just in the time that we've been in the Championship. I mean, they've been and been Nathan. He's been and gone. Schumacher's been and gone. I mean, there's been so many of them, it'd be pointless me sitting here listing them, because I'll forget some of them anyway. And where are they? They're still below us in the table. So I don't think sacking the manager is necessarily the answer. There are definitely problems on the pitch, but there isn't a problem on that pitch other than the 3 defenders too often not knowing who to track or where to track or where to be. Yep. There isn't confidence. Every other problem on the pitch is confidence. Elijah not scoring is confidence. Clark's first touch in recent games, that's confidence. It's only those 3 centre-halves. And maybe, I don't know, maybe because McGuinness is so new, even that might be part of a problem. I don't know. But the rest of it's confidence, and you don't really gain that by sacking the manager.
I've struggled to get my head around that notion so early in the season. It's not gone as well as we wanted, but I don't say that it's in a disaster area, but the confidence is an issue. I asked Rob, how do you change confidence? And he said, well, there's no magic formula to it. It's something you have to keep doing the right things, and they are, but they're not coming off. So then is it a bit of luck? I think it is a bit of luck sometimes. You need a bit of that.
Absolutely. If that Goodrum shot goes the other side of the post last night and we go in 2-0, you never know. If McGuinness heads the ball against QPR, if we win that game, no one will ever tell me we don't. If Kaminsky doesn't have a flash of brain fade at Portsmouth, no one's going to tell me we didn't win that game. That's 5 points to Portsmouth in the QPR game. All of a sudden, you get those 5 points on the board. You're a point off the playoffs, and everyone's like, let's crack on. It's just a fine thing. Usually we would play you an interview with Rob and everything, but you'll have all seen the interview that the club put out, and he said pretty much the same thing in the post-match press conference. So we won't do that. I just want to talk quickly before we finish about just a couple of players on the course of the night. Krause is going to be pivotal to us this season. We really need to hope that injury isn't bad.
Yeah, I thought he was the best player in the park for while he was on it.
That includes Oxford players. He was
fantastic.
He was hassling every single Oxford player. It was almost like every time they played it into their defensive midfielder, we would try. It was like Krause was setting a trap because he was on him the second the guy couldn't turn. If Krause didn't get the ball off him, all he was doing was going back to the keeper or going back to the centre half. At no stage was he the one playing the ball forward, and that's all you can ask of a guy, isn't it? That's what they do to us. And that's why we keep on going backwards. So it's nice to have someone in the team who's doing that for us, and he's got a goal in him.
Yep, first goal. He seems to absolutely love it, thriving. I said before in the preview podcast, I think he's a box-to-box 8. And that's what he showed. He was setting those traps, and that's an important thing, which has got overlooked. Obviously, he scored one, assisted the other with one of those traps. And I think he was head and shoulders the best player on that pitch until he went off. And then as soon as he did, the ideas dried up. The fragility came back in.
The traps weren't being set.
That there was nothing linking Elijah to the midfield, and there was a problem. I guess the argument there is change it in a positive way there. I think that's valid. And if you think that, then I'm with you.
But at the same time, he didn't say to Pelly, do you know what, for 10 minutes, give them the ball.
He didn't, but this is kind of where we are with Pelly Radakampanzu. Everybody loves the bloke. Club legend. He always needs to play his way into a season, and he simply isn't going to get that opportunity now because there's other players ahead of him. So he's going to have to be an impact player off the bench, and it's not his game to come in and just be instantly fantastic. He passed numerous times to their players. It was incredibly frustrating. But on the flip side, you talked about
he rescued us a point.
Potentially, he tactical foul, and maybe that's valuable. But I think you're going to see less and less of Pelly, unfortunately, and it's probably the midfield players that they've got in
are technically superior.
That's it. On the ball, technically better.
Don't ever forget what Pelly Radakampanzu's done to this just because of a few misplaced passes in the last couple of times that he's been on the pitch and things. That's for sure. Absolute hero from start to finish. There's a reason why he's the only guy to go from Conference to Premier League with the same club and all of that. But yeah, we've spoken a lot on this podcast about confidence and crisis in confidence and everything else. Well, Krause hasn't got it. Krause has got confidence. He's got it by the bucket load. Krause has got it. Moses has got it. And we need to start focusing our play around those who have it so that those who don't have it can pick it up alongside them, which is why we really, really, really need that Krause injury not to be too bad.
And he's playing that way when he's in a hotel room on his own in a new country he's never been to, only just getting used to new teammates. And he said his girlfriend is not over it yet. She's coming in a couple of weeks. So imagine his girlfriend turns up with their dog that he loves, and things start feeling like home. If he's playing like that and it's still all a bit alien to him, the prospect of it is really exciting.
Yeah, we've got a special footballer there, and can't close this podcast off without huge props to Kaminsky, because that was special last night. I mean, he won the Save of the Month in the Premier League, didn't he, for that double save against Crystal Palace? I mean, that was better at the Oak Road, and he's in a swimming pool because that Oak Road end was flooded, really, wasn't it? And he's still getting up and making these saves, and kudos to him because, Christ, we needed him.
It was a wow moment because everybody knew when was it Harris went through 1-on-1. You're thinking that's it. This is the third that we all were expecting, and we sort of all resigned to it. But a huge save, a follow-up. Not necessarily sure the third one's going in, but he has to make it anyway. Massive, massive save to keep Luton in it, really, and preserve a point. And, you know, when the sort of really, the instant frustration of a night like that simmers down a little bit, it'd probably still be bubbling a bit because it's not an isolated incident. But you overlook in those immediate moments, you overlook the things like that did make a difference. And, you know, he has made a difference. That being said, I want him to have the quietest game in the world, because nobody can get through Luton in the way that happened in the Championship before, when Marvellous bossed midfields and the defence was so assured. And that's not where we are at the moment. But I think with the changes that we've said there, as long as he can make them, and there's more bodies in midfield, I want Marvellous to play, and I want Krause to play.
Well, you want Baptiste as the other one, don't you?
I think that's the trio. When Baptiste is back, and he's back on the grass, so we don't know when. I would imagine
he'll do Watford if he doesn't do Saturday.
His first availability would probably be Watford. Yeah, that's the midfield three, I think.
Because then you can do what we did last night with Baptiste, Krause, and Nakamba. You can do what we did last night and have Krause and Baptiste in front of Nakamba. But then when we're under a little bit of pressure, because if we go ahead in a game, we're going to be under pressure because the opposition have to come at us then. They're not just going to surrender, are they? Then we can switch it and do two behind one, and Baptiste can just sit there alongside Nakamba. He could be a key man to all of this, Baptiste, because he's a great passer. He's not someone who gives the ball away very easy. You don't get it off of him very easy, as in you literally got to plough through to get him off of his feet. He's got confidence. You can see that. How many times does he just play that lovely dinked pass to the back post? He's good on the ball. Yeah, I don't think maybe we didn't make quite enough of his absence, because when the first time that we saw his absence was at Millwall, which obviously we won, but we were never going to really use Baptiste in that game anyway, because it was woof, 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 woof. And then the Sheffield Wednesday one was the Krause initiation sort of game. But actually, you look at it, if you could have that, we wanted that Holy Trinity midfield last year. Well, this year the Holy Trinity midfield is Marvellous, Baptiste and Krause, I think. And that would be great.
I 100% agree. I also think, only because we just talked about Pelly there, in their sort of stature as players, I think Baptiste is the upgrade on Pelly, in that he can carry the ball in the way that when Pelly was really, really on form, and you know, he would carry the ball from further back towards the attack and keep things ticking over there. And I think he does that in spades. And obviously he's come up with a couple of really good assists. So he's got an eye for that as well. So, yeah, I think he was talked up a lot in summer. And I think because people were sort of focused on why no more signings had been made, not enough had been made of what he could do. And also there's the question of his injury record. Obviously he's injured now, so he's on the recovery, but there was that made people think, well, we're just signing injured players and stuff there, but we've done that before, and it's turned around. So I think so. That is the three I want to see, and I hope I get to see the three I want to see this year, like you say, because last year it never happened. But the frustration is there. The annoyance of how things are panning out, and sometimes a bit of the bad luck that's happening, and it's not all Luton's doing sometimes, but it is most of the time. They all go into this melting pot of frustration, and I understand it. I understand it. I just think that the way you express that frustration is probably the difference of some people that I don't agree with how they do that, but that's life.
Yeah, indeed. Yep. We've given our opinions on this podcast. That's all we do. Give our opinions. We're not out here to change anyone else's opinions, but if you agree with it, then, sort of happy days kind of thing. That's pretty much it for this episode of the podcast. Nobody got Desmond 2-2 in the score predictions. Unfortunately, the guy alongside me did pick a draw at one stage in that game.
Silver linings.
I was looking pretty good at 2-1 for all of 6 or 7 minutes in that game, although I knew when it was 2-1 it wasn't going to win 2-1. So I wasn't dwelling on that too much. A few of you picked out draws, more than enough to name actually. So when I get a leaderboard sorted out, you'll get 1 point. I'll do it during the international break, I promise. We've basically been in here or at a football match every day this week so far.
But there's a lovely little graphic that can appear just here to show you how far I am ahead of
You're 2 points ahead.
this man.
You're 2 points ahead of me.
Yeah.
There's still plenty of time.
We got to have a laugh sometimes, haven't we?
Absolutely. Well, speaking of laughs, Bob Marley serenading me out of that ground last night was...
I noticed that too, yeah.
I couldn't help but laugh,
Yeah.
to be honest. Fair play to the PA guy. You know, you either laugh or you cry. I mean, no woman, no cry for Bob, but, you know, no win, no cry for me. At least it wasn't don't worry, be happy, because that might have been a little bit too much, turning the needle the other way. I love a little bit of humour. Like you say, if you don't laugh, if you can't laugh about things, well, what's life all about? Thanks very much to everyone for all of your comments. Please do keep them coming, whether it's to me in person, on YouTube. We probably haven't picked up all of them on YouTube this week, purely because of the amount of podcasts that are coming out, but I've tried to reply to as many as I can do. We've addressed as many as we can in the podcasts that we've seen, but please do keep them coming. We will get around to activating them. We might even go through a few of them during a little deep dive sort of thing in the international break. We'll pick out the talking point ones and go through there. So if you've got anything you want us to discuss in particular in the international break, drop the comments either in here or one of the two one of the first preview for Sheffield United, and we will activate that during the international break.
I also enjoyed all your team lineups as well. So there's an awful lot of 4 at the back like us two. So
no one really went 5. So
I like that.
Maybe that's a
good bit of confirmation bias every now and again to lift your spirits.
Yeah, it never does any harm, does it? No. As I said right at the start of the podcast, we have been nominated as one of the finalists in the Best Football League podcast category at the Football Content Awards. The date for closing of the vote is Sunday the 13th of October. So you've got less than 10 days by the time you see this to get your vote in. If you haven't voted for us, please spend a few seconds to vote for us. We really, really would appreciate it. And
remember, you can do it 5 times online and on all the socials. So, fill your boots.
Yeah, fantastic if we can get our hands on some silverware or glassware, as I think the trophy is. Thanks as ever to the Barber Club and the Lower Level in Luton for hosting our studio, to Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro music, and to Ed Smith Creative for all the designs that you see on set. From James and myself, let's hope the turning around starts right here. Come on, you Hatters.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people